All right, deep divers ready for another one?
Always ready to dive in.
Today we're going deep into Taiwan's colonial history.
Ooh, complex stuff.
Yeah, but fascinating, right? This one's especially for our longtime listener, Micky.
Right, Micky.
He's really interested in the connection between Taiwan and Japan.
And for good reason. It's a deep connection.
Yeah, his grandfather actually lived through the Japanese colonial period.
Wow.
And yeah, he had a real soft spot for that time.
That's amazing. So where do we even begin with all this?
Well, we've got a stack of Micky sources right here.
Let's see what we've got.
Excerpts from Wikipedia.
Classics.
Even some personal anecdotes.
I love those.
The real deal. And they all kind of point to this
connection.
Right, between Taiwan and Japan.
All right, let's unpack it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So when we think of Taiwan today, we picture this,
vibrant island.
Exactly. But before all that, before any outside influence, what was Taiwan like?
Okay, so picture this. Before the 17th century, no unified Taiwan. Just numerous indigenous tribes, each with their own culture, language, way of life.
So many different groups.
It's a diverse tapestry of communities.
Not one political entity.
Nope.
Wow. So not Taiwan as we know it.
No.
A whole bunch of cultures just doing their thing.
Exactly.
So when did the whole colonial thing start?
Well, officially you could say 1624.
Okay, why 1624?
The Dutch East India Company, masters of trade, and let's be real, empire building. They set up shop in southern Taiwan.
Smart move strategically.
Right. Perfect for a trading post.
But wait, didn't someone else want a piece of the action too?
You're thinking of the Spanish?
The Spanish.
Yeah, they were in northern Taiwan for a bit.
No way.
Built a fort near modern-day Keelung.
Wow, so two European powers wanting the same island.
Classic colonial rivalry.
Total showdown.
Haha. Yeah, but the Dutch won that round.
So they kicked out the Spanish.
Pushed them out, yeah. Consolidated their control.
From indigenous communities to a Dutch trading hub, that's a big shift. But then things get even more interesting, and this is where it ties into Micky's story.
Okay, here we go.
Enter the Ming Dynasty loyalists.
Big moment for Taiwan. This is key.
Okay, I'm listening.
1661, Zheng Chenggong, better known as Koxinga. He arrives on the scene, Ming Dynasty loyalist, totally against the new Qing Dynasty.
Whoa, so he's like a rebel.
A rebel with a cause. He wanted to restore the Ming Dynasty.
Got it. So what does he do?
He sets his sights on Taiwan, kicks out the Dutch, and bam, establishes his own kingdom.
His own WN kingdom.
The Kingdom of Tunning.
So Taiwan went from a Dutch trading post to a base for Ming resistance.
It's a crazy turn of events, right?
That's wild. But what happened to the indigenous people during all of this?
It's so important to remember them. They're caught in the middle.
Right.
Forced to choose sides. Sometimes their lives and cultures completely intertwine with these power struggles.
Wow, so it's not just one colonizer at another?
It's so much more complicated.
Yeah, more like alliances and struggles for power.
Yeah, with the indigenous communities just trying to survive.
It's tough to imagine.
Yeah, and with Zheng's arrival, you have this wave of Han Chinese migration to Taiwan.
So that's when Han Chinese rule really begins.
First time, yep, a major demographic shift still shaping Taiwan today.
Wow. That's a big deal.
Huge.
And this is where Micky's family comes. And his grandfather's family were part of that migration.
Wow.
Hakka people.
Direct link to this era.
Crazy, right? But the Ming loyalists, they couldn't hold on forever.
Nope. The Qing Dynasty, they were coming.
Okay, so the Qing Dynasty, they defeat the Ming on the mainland.
They did.
And then they decide to take Taiwan, too.
1683, they launched a campaign, took over the island, brought it under their rule.
Okay, but was it smooth sailing? Or was there like a fight?
Initially, the Qing were a little unsure about Taiwan.
Unsure.
Some officials even said, let's just ditch it.
They wanted to abandon it. Seriously.
Yeah, strategic concerns, cost of defending it.
I guess that makes sense.
And they saw it as a potential Ming loyalist hideout.
A thorn in their side.
Exactly. But ultimately, they decided to keep it, made it part of their empire.
Good call, because who knows what would have happened otherwise.
Right.
But even under Qing rule, things weren't exactly peaceful, right?
Not exactly.
New people coming in, tensions must have been high.
Imagine a pressure cooker.
Oh, boy.
All these social and economic changes happening, restrictions on migration, land ownership.
Leading to?
Unrest, rebellions, clashes between different groups.
Yeah, that pressure cooker is about to explode.
Yeah, it was a turbulent time.
But then things shift again, mid-19th century.
Here we go, Gert.
The world comes knocking, and Taiwan can't stay isolated anymore.
It's the age of globalization.
What happens?
Well, those Western powers...
Always got to be them.
They start flexing their muscles, Opium wars, pressure for new markets, more trade routes.
Right, the good old opium wars.
It all pushes the Qing dynasty to open up Taiwan to foreign trade.
So Taiwan goes from isolated outpost to global player.
It's a big shift.
What kind of impact did that have?
It was a mixed bag.
How so?
You had economic growth, new opportunities, trade flourished.
Sounds good.
Yeah, but there's always a flip side. Traditional ways of life were disrupted.
Makes sense.
Social and environmental consequences,
Right.
Plus new power dynamics to navigate.
Progress and its consequences.
Classic tale.
And speaking of complicated, here comes 1895.
Oh, boy.
A huge year for Taiwan.
Absolutely.
The Qing dynasty about to lose control, and guess who's waiting?
This is a game changer.
1895, First Sino-Japanese War.
The Qing lose.
Big time.
And they're forced to give up Taiwan.
Just like that.
Well, in the tradition Monosaki, it became official.
Wow, Taiwan under new management.
New era.
But did everyone just accept it?
There was resistance, a real surge of it.
Really?
The Republic of Formosa.
What's that?
Short-lived, but a declaration of independence by Taiwanese residents.
They wanted to fight back.
They did a brave attempt to hold on to their autonomy.
Wow, so a Taiwanese identity was already forming.
It was.
Strong enough to stand up to Japan.
Powerful stuff.
So those 50 years of Japanese rule, that's what ties into Micky's story.
Right. That's where we really dive deep into Micky's family history.
His grandfather would have come of age during that time. What was life like for a Taiwanese person under Japanese rule?
That's what we'll explore next time, how those big historical changes affected people on a personal level.
That's the good stuff.
The human side of history.
Deep divers, make sure you come back for part 2, where we explore the Japanese colonial period and how it all connects to Micky's family.
It's going to be a fascinating journey.
Don't miss it.
See you then.
All right, deep divers, welcome back. Last time we left off with Taiwan, stepping into this whole new chapter under Japanese rule.
Yep, a new era.
But it wasn't just another empire, another change. This was big, especially for Micky.
Right. This is where we get personal with history.
Exactly, because this is Micky's grandfather's life.
Yeah, his life story right there in the history books.
So let's set the scene.
Yeah.
1895.
Big year.
The Japanese have just taken control of Taiwan.
Fresh start, kind of.
But did they just, roll out the red carpet and say welcome?
Not quite.
What was the vibe?
Think about it. They just took over a whole territory.
Right, a whole new place.
With its own systems, its own culture, its own identity.
So their first priority was?
Control, establishing their authority.
Makes sense. Gotta show who's boss.
Exactly, and that meant dealing with anyone who resisted.
Yeah, not exactly a smooth transition.
There was pushback. Definitely.
Like what?
Well, remember the Republic of Formosa?
That short-lived one?
Yeah, that showed that a lot of Taiwanese people weren't just going to give in.
They wanted to fight for their independence.
They did. So the Japanese had to, make it clear they were in charge.
And how did they do that?
Well, sometimes force was involved, sadly.
To suppress dissent.
Yeah. It's a tough part of history.
It is, but a new power takes over. You want to solidify their rule? It happens.
It does, but how did they actually govern Taiwan?
Yeah. Did they just impose their own systems on everyone?
Well, they needed a framework, some kind of legal basis for their rule.
Like a set of rules.
Right, and that's where the 6-3 law comes in.
6-3 law? That sounds intense.
It was basically, it gave the governor general tons of power.
The governor general.
Top Japanese official in Taiwan.
So one guy had all the power.
Pretty much. It was a way to centralize control, streamline decision-making.
So the governor general could just do whatever he wanted.
Well, within the framework of the law, yes, he had a lot of authority.
Wow. Did that work? Did people just go along with it?
The 6-3 law had a huge impact on how Taiwan was governed.
How so?
It allowed the Japanese to make big changes.
Like what kinds of changes?
Everything, administrative structures, education policies.
This is when Micky's grandfather was growing up, right?
Exactly. His whole life was shaped by these changes.
Wow, a law from 1895 impacting a kid's life years later? That's powerful.
It's the ripple effect of history.
So what were these changes like? We keep talking about modernization.
Okay, so picture this: roads, railways, communication networks.
The basics.
The backbone of a modern society, and the Japanese, they invested heavily in all of that.
So they were really building things up.
Transforming the landscape, connecting different parts of the island.
Like a modernization project.
Yeah, and one of the biggest examples was the Western Railway line.
Oh, yeah. I've been on that line.
Still running today.
It's amazing to think it was built over a century ago.
During the Japanese colonial period.
A real reminder of that era.
A physical legacy.
And it wasn't just railways.
Nope. They also focused on industries.
Like what?
Sugar production, rice production, boosting the economy.
So infrastructure and economic development, that was their focus.
It was a big part of it for sure.
But what about the people? What about Taiwanese culture? Did the Japanese try to change that?
That's where things get really interesting, and this is where Micky's grandfather's story comes in even more.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So at first, the Japanese, they were all about assimilation.
Assimilation meaning?
Encouraging Taiwanese people to adopt Japanese customs language.
Like trying to blend the cultures together?
Yeah, create a shared cultural space.
So everyone speaking Japanese wearing kimonos?
Well, it wasn't that extreme, but there was definitely a push towards adopting Japanese ways.
Interesting. But did it last?
As time went on, things shifted, especially as Japan's imperial ambitions grew.
Oh boy, here we go.
Tensions with China increased, and the focus shifted to Japanization.
Japanization sounds more forceful.
It was definitely a more intense approach.
So what happened?
Stricter language policies, suppression of local traditions.
Wow, that's a big change from assimilation.
It went beyond just adopting customs. It was about shaping Taiwanese identity.
To align with Japan's goals.
Exactly.
I can't imagine what that was like for people like Micky's grandfather.
Think about it. He probably received his entire education in Japanese.
Wow, learning to read, write, think in a whole new language.
A profound experience shaping your whole worldview.
And it wasn't just language, right?
Everything was affected. Daily customs, social norms, even clothing.
Their whole way of life was changing.
It was a period of huge cultural upheaval.
So how did people cope?
That's a question historians still debate.
Was there resistance?
Resentment. Some people resisted, clung to their traditions, fought to preserve their culture.
Makes sense.
Others saw opportunities, embraced aspects of Japanese education or the economic advancements.
So a mixed bag of reactions.
For many, it was probably both adapting to survive while holding on to their roots.
A complex time for sure.
It was a melting pot of experiences, just like all the different influences that shaped Taiwan's history.
It's crazy how all these historical events affect real people's lives.
That's what makes history so fascinating.
It's not just dates and names, it's real people living through these huge changes.
And their stories are what connect us to the past.
So we've set the stage for life under Japanese rule.
The foundation is laid.
But empires don't last forever. What happens next in Taiwan's story?
Well, World War II changes everything.
The game changer.
The Japanese empire is defeated. They lose control of Taiwan.
Another turning point.
A new era begins.
Deep divers, you got to come back for part 3, where we explore the end of Japanese rule and what it meant for Taiwan and for people like Micky's grandfather.
It's a story you won't want to miss.
Welcome back, deep divers. We're in the final stretch of our Taiwan deep dive, and things are out to get really interesting.
It's been quite a ride.
Right. From indigenous communities to the Dutch.
Then the Ming loyalists.
The Qing dynasty.
And finally, those 50 years under Japanese rule.
Which brings us to Micky's grandfather.
Right in the thick of it.
His life directly shaped by that era.
So much change in one lifetime.
But like we said, empires don't last forever.
Nope.
And 1945, huge changes.
World War II ends, the whole world's different.
And for Taiwan, it meant saying goodbye to Japanese rule.
Back to Chinese control.
Whole new chapter.
But think about it. Taiwan had been under Japanese administration for 50 years.
A long time.
An entire generation grew up in that system.
Including Micky's grandfather?
They spoke Japanese, embraced the culture. It was their life.
It's like moving back home after being away for years.
The place has changed. It's an adjustment.
And for Taiwan, it was more than just a new government.
It was a whole cultural shift.
A new set of rules, a new way of life.
The Republic of China now in charge.
Led by Chiang Kai-shek and the Kuomintang.
A whole new political landscape.
And Micky mentioned this was tough for his grandfather.
He used the word traumatic.
Why was it so hard?
Imagine spending your whole life in one system.
You know the rules? You speak the language.
You build your life around it.
Then, bam, everything changes.
New authority, new rules, new everything.
Talk about a shock to the system.
And for those who embrace Japanese culture, like Micky's grandfather,
It must felt like losing a part of themselves.
Absolutely. There were language barriers, cultural clashes.
People felt displaced, lost.
It was a huge upheaval.
And don't forget the political turmoil on mainland China at this time.
Oh yeah, the Chinese Civil War still raging.
Kuomintang versus the communists.
Added another layer of complexity to Taiwan's situation.
Caught in the middle again.
It was a turbulent time for sure.
And while this period had some really dark moments in Taiwan's history.
The 228 incident, the White Terror.
Yeah, those events had a huge impact.
But for this deep dive, we're focusing on something else.
On the legacy of the Japanese era.
How those 50 years continued to shape Taiwan even after the Japanese left.
It's not like everything just vanished overnight, right?
Think about it. When you learn something deeply, it stays with you.
It becomes a part of who you are.
It shapes your worldview, your habits, even your subconscious thoughts.
And for Taiwan, those 50 years left a mark, a lasting imprint.
Woven into the fabric of everyday life.
So where can we see these traces of Japanese influence today?
Look around. The architecture.
Those beautiful colonial buildings.
Standing tall next to modern structures.
A blend of old and new.
City planning, too. The layout of streets, the emphasis on order and efficiency.
I remember visiting Taipei and being struck by how clean and organized everything was.
It's a common observation.
And the food.
So many Taiwanese dishes have roots in Japanese cuisine.
A fusion of flavors and techniques.
A delicious legacy.
Even social customs etiquette.
Traces of Japanese influence everywhere.
It's amazing how these layers build upon each other to create something unique.
Taiwan's a cultural melting pot.
And for people like Micky's grandfather, who lived through it all.
There must have been a mix of emotions.
Nostalgia? Maybe a sense of order, fondness for the culture of their youth.
But also the weight of history, the memories of oppression, the struggle for identity.
A complicated legacy.
It's never black and white. History is about human experiences.
About how people navigate these big changes.
And how those experiences shape who they are.
What's fascinating is how these seemingly opposite emotions can exist together.
Resentment alongside respect, a push for a separate Taiwanese identity, but also an acknowledgement of the shared history with Japan.
Makes you think about Micky's grandfather and his personal reflections.
I bet he had some incredible stories.
Micky, if you're listening, we'd love to hear more about your grandfather.
Maybe you could share some of his stories on your YouTube channel, Micky-to-Life.
Speaking of which, deep divers. If you want more awesome content on travel whiskey and great stories,
definitely check out Micky's channel.
We'll put a link in the show notes.
Personal stories, that's how history comes alive.
You can read about events, but it's those human narratives that make it real.
They connect us to the past.
So what have we learned? Taiwan's history is complex.
Layers upon layers.
Indigenous culture, colonial encounters, political upheavals, a constant search for identity.
And that journey continues today.
We've only scratched the surface.
There's so much more to discover.
The nuances of each era, the cultural exchanges, the stories of resilience and change.
It's an invitation to keep exploring.
Like those traces of Japanese influence we see in Taiwan today.
They're like little clues leading us deeper into the past.
Reminding us that history is never really over.
It lives on in the places we inhabit, the cultures we embrace, the stories we carry.
Beautifully said, and on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive.
But keep those mental gears turning, deep divers.
History is out there waiting to be explored.
Who knows what amazing connections you'll find.
Until next time.